Welcome to the Recruiting Scoop on the Inside Texas Football YouTube channel powered by InsideTexas.com. I'm Joe Cook. We got Justin Wells. Talked about the team earlier today with Eric Nalene. We're going to talk a little bit about recruiting today. So make sure you like this video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. If you subscribe, turn on notifications. We appreciate it so you don't miss a video. Today, we'll start with the not so good news, but we're going to knock it out quick. We got some new developments to talk about at some primary positions. And then we also have to show that Texas is still strong for a lot of top targets, including some who will be announcing next week. But let's knock out the ones that we're going to go through and see and hear about today. Malachi Lee, he'll announce later tonight, 1:30 Hawaiian, 7:30 or 6:30 Central. Should be streaming on somebody's streaming on his Instagram, I believe. And this is one of those recruitments, real quick, Justin. It's not like Texas did anything wrong. Just somebody's got to finish second.
Yeah, and here's the thing. I don't even – between you and me, I think he's as good a prospect as Felix Ojo and John Turntine, maybe even a little bit higher up. I mean, this kid, according to a source on campus, said, hey, this kid looks like an SEC offensive tackle day one. Texas really likes him. Malachi Lee actually loved Texas. I just don't think there's going to be room in this class for more than 3 offensive tackles, and the Horns are already trending well with 2.
We'll go real quick. Chase Calicut from North Shore. This has been one that's bounced all over the place. Michigan, Texas, Georgia. Our friend Jake Rouse over at Dogs HQ put in a RPM today. I think there have been some other ones. Chase is really enjoying the recruitment, but a lot of Georgia in his ear, and that may be making this recruitment red and black.
This is why recruitments are fluid, because less than 2 weeks ago, he was telling reporters Georgia's out and that it was down to Texas and Michigan. And he had been leaning in Texas for the longest. The Horns were in on him early, often, and hosted him a handful of times. I actually caught up with his mom last night just to kind of catch up and see how his recruitment's going. He's going to be announcing at 3 o'clock today, Central Time. I think it's 4 Eastern Time out in Miami. They're at the OT7. I believe it's the 7-on-7 finals out in Miami. And so he's ready. He's excited. She's excited. Hey, Texas was in it for the longest, but man, Georgia just came and you know, sometimes Sark goes into the Peach State and he takes some big dogs out of Kirby Smart. Well, Kirby Smart likes to return the favor. They're on top too. And so they come into Texas, and we feel good that that's going to be the spot right now. We also understand that Texas is not going to let up on Chase Calicut. They're going to continue to recruit him.
Last, we'll go into some wide receiver recruiting details. Texas has Cohen Brown, Chris Stewart, Jermaine Bishop, even though he took some pictures with the Thorpe Award, is probably going to start at receiver for Texas when he gets to the 40 acres. I put in an RPM this morning. Eric and I did for Caden Finley to end up committing to Notre Dame and stick with Notre Dame. We had thought my rationale for my RPM to Texas was this one is one that might play out down the road. Yeah. But we've gained some intel that just says that mountain is looking a lot steeper than we originally anticipated. Notre Dame, Marcus Freeman, that whole crew has done really well in recruiting Finley, making him a priority. And they have had a very great run. They're going to go on a run at receiver. May even see Braden Robinson and I forget his first name, but Devin Fitzgerald. Larry's son end up in green and gold. You had a note also last little bit of like things aren't going Texas way. We're going to get to stuff where things are going Texas way. Jalen Lott, you know, we had kind of admitted Texas is probably not going to be the school, but just to keep people updated, some developments on that one.
Yeah, and real quick on Jermaine Bishop, I actually asked the source close to that recruitment, you know, why was he in pictures with the DB trophy? He said, because they don't have the wide receiver.
There's
no Bolitnikovs. And it's not foretold that he's going to play on one side or the other. He's going to show up. His first stop's going to be in the wide receiver room. If he moves over to the DB room, so be it. I don't think Texas is done at wide receiver. I really do think they're going to just wait and cherry pick a late senior eval or try to flip someone late. Jalen Lott has been trending USC over the last few weeks. We understand how they're running NIL at another level right now. I talked to somebody this morning that said Oregon feels like they've got it done. And so I may be changing my Jalen Lott pick to Oregon here in the next few hours, next few days. But that's another kid that Texas isn't going to stop recruiting. Finley, Lott, these are guys Texas has been on for over a year, in some cases 2 years. They're not just going to stop connecting with these kids just because they commit to another school. We see this every summer. And so just understand, Texas feels really good at wide receiver, what they have on campus now, especially with the 3 studs they brought in the 2025 class. They understand 2026, they don't have to hit home runs every cycle. Sometimes you need those developmental kids that wind up turning into stars, a la like a DeAndre Moore. And so at the end of the day, I think Lott is trending more Oregon. Obviously, Finley and Notre Dame, that's kind of been that's kind of been the song and dance with those two. But don't be surprised if they go after a late senior eval later in the cycle.
Head to Inside Texas, that intel's there, kind of lays out the wide receiver recruiting rationale and what's going on. But let's get to let's quit punching ourselves in the stomach. Let's talk a little bit about where Texas may be going for running back. Okay, Xavier Correll commits to Alabama. Texas made a spirited run, but Derek Cooper still remains on the board, and that's someone that Chad Scott is working really hard to not just try to get that commitment with that date coming up soon, but just to again maintain, keep going, and get him maybe to Austin during the 2026 football season.
Hey, Chad Scott did something no one had done before, and that's get Derek Cooper to campus. And they absolutely loved it. The next step was getting mom and the group and the family and everybody back to campus for an official visit. The problem was they already had a few things scheduled in June, and their family did not want to get off that schedule. They didn't want to, those coaches had built relationships. She didn't want to disrespect those coaches. They want to give them a shot. Here's what I predict is going to happen. He's going to commit to somebody. I believe in mid-July is his decision date. He's going to commit somewhere, and Texas isn't going to blink. They are just going to continue to push. They are going to continue to assert themselves in this recruitment. Look, this is one that we talked about a little bit earlier with some other recruitments. This is an NIL recruitment. Not all of them are. When we talk about like a Felix Ojo, we talk about a John Turntine, we talk about some of these guys. Those aren't necessarily NIL recruitments. This one is. And Texas needs a elite back in this class. They took 2 good 4-stars last year, and James Simon and Ricky Stewart Jr. They need to take an elite guy in that room. They did it 2 years ago with CJ Baxter. Now this has got to be the guy. And so they're going to continue to push for the Fort Lauderdale kid. You know who else is pushing really hard for Derek Cooper? He's right down the road. His name's Dia Bell, and he is recruiting just as hard as these coaches are on staff in Austin. And so I like that. That gives me some confidence. I actually talked to somebody this morning about Cooper. They said, look, they talk to him and his family a couple times a week. Even though Cooper doesn't mention Texas a lot when he's talking about schools, they're in the back of his mind. Then he shows up to a 7-on-7 event yesterday, decked out in Texas Longhorn gear from top to bottom. Which I also got a funny source sent me a text. I got to show you that, and Joe. End of the day, Derek Cooper's going to be the guy they're going to start swinging at. Crowell was always going to be a long shot. You thought they could stay close, but KJ Edwards is headed to A&M. They prioritized him. Javian Osborne's headed to Notre Dame. They're putting together a potential number 1, number 2, number 3 class. And Tredarian Ball jumped into Oregon basket early, and he's not going anywhere but Eugene. And so the positive here is Derek Cooper and Texas are still talking, and it's late June, it's early July, like we talked about in both of our recruiting stories this morning at Inside Texas. Things get fluid, things move around a lot. Just do not forget Derek Cooper when we start talking about running backs.
We'll keep on going in just a second, but before we do, got to show some love to our sponsor, and that is Luxe Kitchen and Bath.
This video is brought to you by Luxe Kitchen and Bath. Luxe has been offering high-end kitchen and bathroom remodels for 3 generations throughout the greater Austin area. With 5-star review after 5-star review on Google and Facebook, and an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau, you can put your faith in Luxe Kitchen and Bath's award-winning designers and skilled craftspeople to bring to life that dream vision of your special home. But that's not all. Luxe's all-star team provides full remodels, large additions, and even commercial build-outs as well. So call Luxe Kitchen and Bath at 833-358-LUXE today. Or visit luxekitchenbath.com to discover where quality meets luxury and begin the process of transforming your home. Get a free quote today by calling 833-358-LUXE. That's LUXE. Or by visiting luxekitchenbath.com. Link in the description.
So Malachi Lee, again, probably heading to Ann Arbor, but another player that Texas is competing with the Wolverines for, Felix Ojo, John Turntine. Ojo's a numbers buster. You make room for him in any class. Turntine, I think kind of similarly. But as you noted in the humidor today, Longhorn's still looking strong for both these guys.
Yeah, and something else that kind of gives you, it's, there's data points when it comes to recruiting. When you see a guy like Malachi Lee, who absolutely loves Texas and came in and had a great visit, and then you see him kind of trending Michigan, you think, well, Michigan won the recruitment. Well, I think Texas, if they would have pushed the right buttons and didn't have so many offensive tackles already kind of designated to campus, I think they could have got him. And I'm telling you, Kyle Flood made a major impression on this guy. Texas was his first offer. Like, this was a real relationship. And so, but I think Felix Ojo and John Turntine have almost scared off a handful of people. We know Zayden Crimpin was loving Texas, but the fact that he not really wanting to join a group of other offensive tackles. You got Max Wright in the class already, and he's a project, but he's a guy that in 2 years could be making an impact because he has as much upside as anybody athletically, his frame, his strength, his genetic buildup, makeup. And so I think Turntine and Ojo in Texas just makes too much sense. And I think that's why you're starting to see dominoes fall of offensive tackles going other places.
We'll bounce around some of the guys we've talked about. Kosi Akpala, very often a guy deciding up this upcoming week. You have an RPM in. I think basically everybody but me has an RPM in for him to end up at Texas. Keeve Brown, the tight end out of California, Corona Centennial. Someone who we think Texas is still in a great spot for, have since about early June.
We think he's going to be a Longhorn. There's some confidence there.
Jamarian Carlton, the Temple edge, Texas, pairing him with Richard Wesley seems like it's likely to happen. Great job by Allen Clark. Can't get through a recruiting video without talking about Allen Clark. But a couple more guys to talk about. 3, actually. Samari Matthews. This is one that's become a little bit more interesting. There's a lot of Texas predictions out there from us, from On3. Our friends over at Gamecock Central have some budding confidence in Shane Beamer's program. Although they're in South Carolina, North Carolina is not too far away, and this one's turning into thank you. I'll remember that one next time. But Samari Matthews, this is turning into a very intriguing Texas-South Carolina battle that we don't normally get to take part in or cover.
You remember the last big Texas-South Carolina recruiting battle?
Was it, probably like Marcel Southall and Chris Daniels, but that was about 10 years ago. Is there another one?
Parker Livingstone.
Oh.
Do you know how close Parker was to going to South Carolina? If Texas didn't come in and offer and make him a priority, he was going to South Carolina. And so, look, South Carolina's got a good thing going. I think they've got a great program. I like what Shane Beamer's doing with Lenore Sellers and building that massive defensive line. They made an impression on Samari. I still think it wasn't enough, and that's kind of where we're at now. And there's still a few more weeks for this recruitment to play out. But Samari – Texas made such an impression on him, not only with his offer, with his unofficial visit, but with his official visit, with all the times he had came in. I don't know if I met a kid that was happier coming out of a visit this spring than Samari Matthews. And so South Carolina got that last OV. They were smart that they made up some slack in this recruitment. I still think it's Texas to beat, but watch the Southeastern Conference version of USC. You have to watch those guys because they are recruiting very well. They've got a great quarterback. They got a good system, and it's a little bit closer to home. I think at the end of the day, Texas still wins out, but we have a few more weeks to get more reads and kind of figure how this thing will play.
What, he moved up to July 11th? Does that sound correct?
Yeah, I think it was like July 22nd or 23rd originally, and then he moved it up like two weeks probably.
So,
and we thought Samari was ready to have an announcement date in April. Mm-hmm. April's the first time he told us about this late July date. So he's had an idea where he's going to go and when he was going to announce for a long time. And I do think that trends more Texas.
Last, we'll go over some 5 stars. Xavier Griffin, Tyler Atkinson, 2 guys out of the Peach State there in Georgia. Griffin once committed to USC, didn't stick as many USC commitments from that part of the country. Atkinson, Grayson Ram, top program. Texas got both those guys in for official visits.
Yeah.
Going to be tough to pull both, but it's looking like Texas is going to make its strongest effort in getting at least one of those guys.
Right. We're going to go biblical on you on this Friday. Hey, you're going to have to split the baby.
Mm-hmm.
Which one do you want most? Do you want Tyler Atkinson, the elite linebacker, or do you want Xavier Griffin, the elite linebacker / edge? I just don't see both of them in this class. But when you talk to both people around those recruitments, Texas is really in it. Look, they wedged themselves into this Atkinson deal. Feels like overnight. I know they've been talking for a few months. I know he had hung out in Austin for a minute, but they really wedged themselves in. Now, Georgia still feels the utmost confidence in that. They don't want Sark and Texas coming back into that state and taking the best player again, like they did with Justice Terry. They just don't want that to happen. Plus, he's a track and smack type of linebacker. But Xavier Griffin in Texas, ever since that unofficial in April, and Alan Clark asserted himself in this recruitment, and them saying, look, you can be like an Anthony Hill, where you'll play some edge as a freshman, and then when you get bigger, you kind of fill out a little bit more, you get a little bit smarter, then you can move a little bit closer inside and potentially play linebacker. And so I think that's the selling point that Griffin likes, and he can be special off the edge. We did a notebook on him. He really does do a lot. I just, in the NIL era, with money being a factor in a salary cap sort of, I don't think they're going to be able to get both. But I do think Texas gets one. They're going to split this baby. I just don't know which half.
All these decisions coming up, it really, really starts this upcoming weekend. Visits are done. Players can't go anywhere. There is a dead period, so they're at home. They're deciding all this weekend. Next week, July 4th, dates to track there. John Turntine's definitely one to know on July 4th. Even got the time from our guy, Charlie Williams, if you go to Inside Texas. So go over there. Links in the bio or links in the description. Head to InsideTexas.com. And of course, anything that pops up will be here. So like this video, subscribe to the channel. Please turn on notifications so that anything happens, you'll see it in your feed. You'll be able to watch us react and talk about it. So, Justin, thank you so much. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time on the Recruiting Scoop on the Inside Texas Football YouTube channel, powered by InsideTexas.com.